The space station floated in the darkness between stars. It was called Seven, and it was one of the biggest trading posts in the galaxy. Ships came and went every hour. Aliens from 100 different worlds walked through its metal hallways. Some were tall, some were short, some had tentacles, some had scales, some glowed in the dark. Had lived on this station for 3 years. She was a human woman from Earth, from a country called Korea. She was 28 years old with black hair that she kept tied back in a simple ponytail. She was not tall. She was not big. Among the aliens on this station, she looked like a small child. Her job was simple. She was a cargo inspector. When ships arrived at the station, she checked what they were carrying. She made sure nobody was smuggling illegal things. She wrote reports. She filed documents. It was boring work, but it paid well, and she sent most of her money back to Earth. Her mother was sick, and medicine was expensive. Did not have many friends on the station. She kept to herself. She woke up early, went to work, ate alone, and went to sleep. Some of the other humans on the station tried to talk to her, but she was always polite and distant. She did not want trouble. She just wanted to do her job and go home someday. The other humans understood. They all felt the same way. Humans were new to the galaxy. First contact had happened only 40 years ago, when grandmother was still a young woman. In galactic terms, humans were bobbies. They had no powerful friends. They had no strong military. They were guests in someone else's house, and they had to behave. This meant keeping their heads down. This meant being quiet and polite. This meant never fighting back. The aliens did not respect humans much. They saw them as weak and soft. Human skin was thin. Human bones broke easily. Humans needed to eat and sleep and breathe a very specific mixture of gases. They died from things that other species found annoying. A disease, a fall, a bit of bad food. Humans were fragile creatures from a dangerous planet, and nobody understood how they had survived long enough to build spaceships. But nobody bothered them either. Humans were useful. They worked hard. They followed rules. They did not complain. Many station commanders liked having humans around because they were cheap and reliable. Was fine with this arrangement. She did not need respect. She needed credits. She needed to pay for her mother's treatment. Everything else was just noise. Then she met. They were one of the most feared species in the galaxy. They came from a heavy world, a planet with twice the gravity of Earth. This made them incredibly strong. Their bodies were built like tanks. Their bones were harder than steel. Their muscles could crush metal. A single could lift a small vehicle over his head and throw it across a room. They were also mean. Not all of them, of course, but many believed that strength was the only thing that mattered. If you were strong, you deserved respect. If you were weak, you deserved nothing. This made them natural bullies. Was the worst bully on Seven. He stood almost 3 meters tall. He had skin like stone and 4 massive arms. His head was flat and wide, with small black eyes that looked at everyone with contempt. He had been on the station for 10 years, and in that time he had built a small criminal empire. He ran a protection operation. This meant he threatened shop owners and workers until they paid him money. If they refused, bad things happened. Cargo went missing, equipment broke. Sometimes people got hurt. Station security knew about, but they did nothing. They were too strong, too connected, too dangerous. It was easier to look away. Had heard about, but she had never met him. She worked in the cargo bays far from his territory. She thought she was safe. She was wrong. One day, a ship arrived at her inspection station. It was a small freighter with markings. The captain was nervous. He kept looking over his shoulder. When asked to see the cargo manifest, his hands were shaking. She found the problem quickly. The ship was carrying medical supplies according to the documents. But when she scanned the containers, she found something else. Weapons, illegal weapons, enough to arm a small army. The captain started to sweat. He leaned close to and whispered. "Please," he said, "just sign the manifest. Say everything is fine. I will give you money, a lot of money." Looked at him. Who owns this cargo? The captain's face went pale. Understood now. This was a smuggling operation. Was bringing weapons onto the station, probably to sell to criminals or rebels. If she signed the manifest, she would be helping him. If she refused, she would be making an enemy. She thought about her mother. She thought about the credits she needed. She thought about how easy it would be to just look away like everyone else. Then she thought about the weapons, about who might buy them, about the people who might die. "No," she said. The captain's eyes went wide. "What?" "I will not sign this. I am reporting this cargo as illegal. Station security will be. The captain grabbed her arm. You do not understand, will kill you. He will kill your whole family. He does not forgive. Pulled her arm free. Her face was calm, but something hard flickered in her eyes, something the captain did not recognize. I am filing an accurate report, she said. That is my job. She walked away. Behind her, the captain put his head in his hands and began to cry. That night went back to her small room on deck 15. She ate her dinner alone. She called her mother on the long-range communicator and talked about nothing important. She did her exercises, the same exercises she had done every day since she was 5 years old. Then she went asleep. She knew would come for her. She knew there would be trouble, but she was not afraid. Fear was a luxury she had given up long ago. What she felt instead was something colder, something patient, something that had been sleeping inside her for a very long time. She did not know it yet, but everything was about to change. Not just for her, not just for the station, but for every human in the galaxy. It started with a single word. No 3 days passed after filed her report. The weapons were taken by station security. The ship captain was arrested. The cargo was destroyed. On paper, it was a victory for law and order. In reality, everyone knew it was a death sentence for the woman who had made it happen. Lost 50,000 credits that day. More importantly, he lost face. Word spread through the station like fire. A human had him. A small, quiet human woman had looked at his operation and said no. People were talking. People were laughing, for this was worse than losing money. This was an insult to his honor. He had to respond. Knew he was coming. She could feel it in the way people looked at her. The other workers in the cargo bay stopped talking when she walked past. Her supervisor, a four-armed alien named, called her into his office and begged her to take a vacation. Go back to Earth, he said. Disappear for a while, let things cool down. She refused. Running would not solve anything. Had a long memory and longer arms. If she ran now, she would be running forever. So she continued her normal routine. She woke up, she worked, she ate, she exercised, she slept, and she waited. The confrontation came on the 4th day, in the station mess hall. The mess hall was a large room on deck 8, filled with long tables and cheap food dispensers. It was always crowded during meal times. Hundreds of aliens from dozens of species packed into the space, eating and talking and arguing. It was loud and smelly and chaotic, but it was also neutral ground. No species controlled the mess hall. Everyone was equal there. Or so people believed. Sat at her usual table in the corner near the back wall. She had a small bowl of rice and some kimchi that she had bought from a Korean shop on deck 12. She ate slowly, using metal chopsticks that she had brought from Earth. Around her, the noise of the mess hall buzzed like insects. She felt him before she saw him. The room grew quiet, not all at once but in a wave starting from the main entrance and spreading outward. Conversations stopped, heads turned, bodies moved out of the way. Walked through the mess hall like a king walking through his palace. He was enormous, even among he was big. His skin was covered in scars from old fights. His 4 arms swung at his sides like weapons waiting to be used. Behind him walked 3 other, smaller but still huge by any normal standard. They were his crew, his enforcers. Every eye in the room was on them. Walked straight to his table and stopped. His shadow fell over her like a blanket. She did not look up. She continued eating her rice, one small bite at a time. You said, his voice was deep and rough like rocks grinding together. You are the human who touched my cargo. Picked up a piece of kimchi with her chopsticks. I inspected your cargo, that is my job. Your job, repeated. He leaned forward, placing 2 of his massive hands on her table. The metal groaned under his weight. Your job cost me 50,000 credits. Your illegal weapons cost you 50,000 credits, said. She still did not look at him. I just wrote the report. A murmur went through the crowd. Nobody talked to like this. Nobody. His black eyes narrowed. He was not used to resistance. He was not used to being challenged. The small human woman in front of him should be begging for mercy. She should be crying. She should be offering him everything she had to make this right. Instead, she was eating kimchi. Do you know what I do to people who steal from me? Asked. His voice dropped lower, more dangerous. I did not steal from you. You took my money, that is stealing. He slammed one fist on the table, cracking the surface. The sound echoed through the silent room. I think you need to learn a lesson, little mammal. I think you need to understand what happens when you make enemies with the wrong people. Finally looked up. Her face was calm, completely calm. There was no fear in her eyes, no anger, no emotion at all. She looked at the way a person might look at a fly buzzing around their food, annoyed but not worried. "What do you want?" she asked. Smiled. It was an ugly smile, full of sharp teeth. "I want you to apologize, get on your knees, put your head on the floor, beg me to forgive you. Do this and maybe I will let you live." The crowd held its breath. Set down her chopsticks, she picked up a small napkin and wiped her mouth. Then she stood up, slowly, carefully, like she had all the time in the world. She was so small compared to him. The top of her head barely reached his chest. Her arms were thin. Her body was soft. She looked like something he could break with one hand. "No," she said. "Blinked a what?" "I said no. I will not apologize. I will not kneel. I did nothing wrong." The room was completely silent now. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. This was impossible. This was suicide. Stared at her for a long moment. Then he started to laugh. It was a horrible sound, deep and wet and mean. His crew joined in, their massive bodies shaking with amusement. The laughter echoed off the walls, filling the mess hall with noise. "You have courage, little human," said when he finally stopped laughing. "Stupid courage, but courage, I almost respect it." He leaned down until his face was close to hers. His breath smelled like sulfur and rotting meat. "But courage will not save you. Nothing will save you. You are small and weak and soft. You are nothing." He straightened up and spread all four of his arms wide. His chest was like a wall of stone. "But I am fair. I will give you one chance. Hit me." Did not move. "Hit me," repeated louder now, playing to the crowd. "Show everyone what humans are made of. Give me your best shot. If you can hurt me, I will let you go. I will forget this whole thing. But if you cannot..." He let the threat hang in the air. His crew laughed again. The crowd shifted nervously. Some of the humans in the room looked away. They knew what was coming. They had seen in fights before. Human fists could not hurt them. Human strength meant nothing to them. A man named who worked in the engineering section caught Sai. He shook his head slightly. "A warning, do not do this. Do not make it worse." Pounded his chest with two of his fists. The impact sounded like drums. "Hit me then," he roared. "Come on, little mammal, show me what you have." Looked at him for a long moment. Her face was still calm, still empty. Then she spoke, and her voice was very quiet. "Are you sure?" Laughed at her question. Of course he was sure. He had never been more sure of anything in his life. His bones were harder than the metal walls of this station. His muscles could crush rocks into dust. In his 50 years of life, he had been in hundreds of fights. He had broken bodies. He had ended lives. He had never once been hurt by anything smaller than a mining drill. And now this tiny human woman was asking if he was sure. It was the funniest thing he had ever heard. "Yes, little mammal," he said, still laughing. "I am sure. Hit me. Use both hands if you want. I will even close my eyes." He did not close his eyes. He wanted to see her fail. He wanted to watch her weak little fist bounce off his chest like a child's toy. Then he would grab her. Then he would show everyone what happened to people who him. The crowd watched in silence. Many of them had seen demonstrations before. They knew what was about to happen. The human would hit him. Her hand would probably break, then would hurt her very badly. Some people were already looking away. They did not want to see. Stood very still. She was looking at his body, not at his face, not at his arms. She was looking at a specific spot just below his throat where his thick neck met his massive chest. Her eyes were focused there like a laser. Nobody noticed this. They were too busy watching show. Well, spread his arms wider. "I am waiting, or are you too scared? Are you going to cry now, beg for mercy?" Did not answer. She was breathing slowly. In and out, in and out. Her heartbeat was steady. Her muscles were relaxed but ready. She had stood like this many times before, in training halls, in competitions, in the military. This was not the first time she had faced someone bigger than her. It was not even the 100th time. On Earth, she had been small all her life. Every opponent she ever faced was bigger and stronger. She had learned very early that size and strength were not everything. Precision mattered more, speed mattered more, knowledge mattered most of all. She knew things about bodies, all kinds of bodies. She knew where the nerves were, she knew where the blood vessels were. She knew where a small amount of force applied to exactly the right spot could do terrible damage. Her grandfather had taught her this. He was a quiet old man who had fought in wars she never asked about. He had hands like leather and eyes like ice. When she was young, he would sit with her in the garden and show her drawings of the human body. Here, he would say, pointing to a spot on the neck, hit here and they cannot breathe. Here, he would say, pointing to a spot under the arm, hit here and the arm stops working. Here, he would say, pointing to a spot on the chest, hit here and the heart stops. She had learned every spot. She had practiced every strike. By the time she was 18, she could put a grown man on the ground in less than a second. By the time she joined the Marines, her instructors called her dangerous. But she had never used her skills in anger. She had never wanted to hurt anyone. She kept her knowledge locked away, like a weapon she hoped she would never need. Now, looking at its body, she unlocked that weapon. The body was different from a human body, but not that different. She had studied alien anatomy during her training on the station. It was part of her job. She needed to know what was inside the containers she inspected. This meant knowing what different species looked like, inside and out. She knew that had a cluster of nerves at the base of their throat. It was like a junction box. All the signals from the brain to the body passed through that spot, damage it, and the signals stopped. The body would shut down like a machine that lost power. She looked at that spot now. It was not protected. His arms were spread wide. His chest was open. He was not defending himself because he did not think he needed to defend himself. He was wrong. Moved. To the aliens watching, what happened next was too fast to see. One moment, the small human woman was standing still. The next moment was falling. But if you slowed it down, if you watched the security footage frame by frame like the investigators would do later, you would see something beautiful and terrible. His right foot shifted backward just a few centimeters, giving her a stable base. Her hips rotated forward, generating power from her core. Her shoulder followed her hips. Her elbow followed her shoulder. Her fist followed her elbow. It was a perfect chain of movement. Every part of her body worked together, adding speed and power to the strike. Her small muscles fired in perfect sequence, like instruments in an orchestra. Her fist hit his throat at exactly the right spot. The impact was not loud. It was not dramatic. It was just a small sound like a stick breaking. But the effect was immediate. His eyes went wide. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. His forearms, which had been spread wide in mockery, suddenly jerked inward. His legs buckled. He fell. Not slowly, not gracefully. He dropped straight down like someone had cut all the strings holding him up. His massive body hit the floor with a crash that shook the tables and rattled the food trays. He did not move. His eyes were open, staring at the ceiling. His chest rose and fell, so he was still alive. But his arms did not move, his legs did not move, his head did not turn. He lay there like a broken statue. The silence in the mess hall was absolute. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The three behind stared at their leader's body with expressions of pure disbelief. Lowered her hand. She was breathing a little harder than before, but her face was still calm. She looked down without anger or satisfaction. She looked at him the way you might look at a problem you had just solved. "I did taekwondo since I was 5 years old," she said quietly. "My grandfather taught me where to hit." She bent down and picked up her chopsticks from the table. She set them neatly beside her bowl. "Someone should call medical," she added. "I think I damaged his nervous system." Then she sat down and continued eating her rice. Around her, the universe changed. The medical team arrived 4 minutes after Fell. They rushed into the mess hall with stretchers and equipment, pushing through the crowd of shocked aliens. When they saw who was on the floor, they stopped. They looked at each other. Then they looked at who was still eating her rice. "What happened?" the lead medic asked. He was a Tellurian, a species with blue skin and large eyes. "He asked me to hit him," said, "so I did." The medic stared at her for a long moment. Then he turned back to and started working. It took 6 people to lift the stretcher. His body was heavy and limp. His eyes were still open, but they did not see anything. His mouth moved sometimes, making small sounds that might have been words. His forearms lay at his sides like dead things. They carried him out of the mess hall. The crowd parted to let them through. Nobody spoke. Everyone watched. After they were gone, the 3 who had come with stood in the middle of the room. They looked lost, confused. They had followed this man for years. They had watched him crush enemies with his bare hands, and now he was gone, taken down by a creature half his size. One of them stepped toward, his fists were clenched. His face was twisted with anger and fear. Looked up at him, just looked. She did not stand, she did not speak. She just met his eyes with her calm, empty gaze. The stopped, he stood there for a long moment, breathing hard. Then he turned and walked away. The other two followed him. They did not look back. When they were gone, the mess hall exploded with noise. Everyone was talking at once. Aliens crowded around's table, asking questions, demanding answers. What did she do? How did she do it? Was dead. Ignored them. She finished her rice, cleaned her chopsticks, and walked out of the mess hall. The crowd parted for her like water. That night, the news spread across the station. A human had dropped her with one punch. At first, nobody believed it. The story sounded like a joke. Humans were weak, everyone knew this. They were soft little creatures from a soft little planet. The idea that one of them could hurt her was ridiculous. But then the video appeared. Someone in the mess hall had recorded the whole thing. The footage showed everything. Laughing, spreading his arms, falling. And the human woman, small and calm, standing over him like she had done nothing unusual. The video went viral. Within hours, it had been seen on every deck of the station. Within days, it had spread to other stations. Within a week, it was playing on news networks across the entire galaxy. Human female DEFEATS VORTHAK crime lord with single strike, the headlines said. DEATHWRLD species shows its true nature. Scientists began studying the footage. They analyzed movements frame by frame. They calculated the speed of her punch. They measured the force of the impact. The numbers were surprising. Human reaction time, 0.25 seconds, faster than any species of similar size. Human striking speed, 15 meters per second, fast enough to catch most species off guard. Human precision, within 2 millimeters of the target, accurate enough to hit small nerve clusters. This was not luck, this was skill, this was training. This was something that humans had been developing for thousands of years. Other files were pulled up. Old files. Files about human history that had been classified since first contact because they were too disturbing for general viewing. Humans, it turned out, had been fighting each other since before they were humans. They had developed hundreds of ways to hurt and kill. They had studied the body and learned all its weaknesses. They had created martial arts, fighting systems that turned their small, soft bodies into weapons. But that was not the most disturbing part. The most disturbing part was their home planet. Earth was what scientists called it was a planet where everything was trying to kill you. The weather could freeze you or burn you or blow you away. The ground could shake and swallow cities. The water was full of predators. The land was full of predators. Even the air contained a corrosive gas called oxygen that slowly destroyed metal and organic tissue. Humans had evolved on this planet. They had survived. They had thrived. How? A professor from the Tellurian Academy published a paper that answered this question. The paper was called The Persistence Predator, and it became the most read scientific document in galactic history. Humans, the paper explained, were not prey animals. They looked like prey animals. They were small and soft and slow. But this was a disguise. In truth, humans were persistence predators, hunters who had evolved to kill creatures much larger and stronger than themselves. They did this through patience, through endurance, through intelligence. A human could not outrun a deer, but a human could follow that deer for days, walking slowly, never stopping, until the deer collapsed from exhaustion. Then the human would kill it. A human could not fight a mammoth head-to-head, but a human could make tools and weapons and traps. A human could work with other humans, coordinating attacks, sharing information. Together, they could bring down any creature on their planet. And when humans fought each other, the professor included a section on human warfare. The death tolls were so high that many readers thought they were errors. Millions dead, tens of millions, hundreds of millions. Humans had killed each other with rocks and spears and swords and guns and bombs and poison gas and nuclear fire. They had been doing this for their entire history. They had gotten very, very good at it. The galaxy had thought humans were harmless. The galaxy had been wrong. Humans were not harmless. Humans were the most dangerous species anyone had ever met. They had just been hiding it. Back on 7 continued her normal routine. She woke up, she worked, She ate, she exercised, she slept. But now everything was different. People moved out of her way in the corridors. Workers who had ignored her for years suddenly wanted to be her friend. Station security contacted her every day, asking for information about its operation. She gave them everything she knew: names, locations, account numbers. The whole criminal network started to collapse. And in the medical bay, lay in a bed, staring at the ceiling. The doctors had done everything they could. They had repaired what they could repair, but the damage was severe. The nerve cluster she had struck controlled all voluntary movement in his body. It was like she had cut the wires between his brain and his muscles. He would never walk again. He would never use his arms again. He would spend the rest of his life in that bed, unable to move, unable to fight, unable to do anything except think about what had happened. The human had beaten him. The small, soft, weak human had destroyed him with one punch. And he had asked for it 6 months past. Sat in the same mess hall at the same corner table, eating the same rice and kimchi. Some things never changed, but everything around her was different now. The table next to her was not empty anymore. Sat there, eating carefully and slowly. His name was, and he had traveled from the specifically to meet her. He was smaller than, and his eyes were not cruel. He looked at with something like respect. Across from him sat the station commander, named. She was a short creature covered in purple fur, with 6 eyes that could see in all directions at once. Before the incident, she had never spoken to a human. Now she had lunch with every week. "The council has approved the proposal," said. "Human martial arts instructors will be stationed on all major trading posts. The consortium has agreed to fund half the program." Nodded. "We have much to learn from your people. Your fighting techniques are unlike anything we have seen. Our scientists are still studying the video of your strike. They say it should have been impossible." Sipped her tea. "It was not impossible, it was just physics. Force equals mass times acceleration. My mass is small, but my acceleration was high, and I knew where to aim." "Yes," said. "The aiming, that is what fascinates us. You knew exactly where to hit. You studied our bodies." "I study everything," said. "That is how humans survive." There was silence for a moment, then leaned forward. "I have another proposal for you," the commander said. "Station security would like to offer you a position, not as a cargo inspector, as a security advisor. You would help train our officers. You would help us understand human capabilities. You would be paid well." Set down her cup. "I am just a cargo inspector." "You were a cargo inspector," corrected. "Now you are the woman who changed how the galaxy sees your species. Your file says you served in the military, 2 years in the Korean Marine Corps. Is that correct?" "Yes." "Then you are wasted in cargo inspection." 6 eyes focused on space. "We need you. The galaxy needs to understand humans, not just the violence, but the training, the discipline, the control. You showed more control in that mess hall than most warriors show in their entire lives. You could have killed him, but you chose not to." Was quiet for a long moment. She thought about her mother back on Earth. She thought about the credits she was sending home. She thought about the life she had built here, quiet and small and safe. Then she thought about the video, about the news stories, about the way humans were being treated now all across the galaxy. Things were changing. Human workers were no longer invisible. They were being hired for security positions on stations that had never employed them before. Human martial arts schools were opening on a dozen worlds. Human military advisors were being invited to consult with alien governments. For 40 years, humans had kept their heads down. They had been quiet and polite and harmless. They had hidden what they really were. Now the secret was out. "I will think about it," said. Nodded. "That is all I ask." After lunch, walked through the station. It was different now. She could feel it in the air. People looked at her as she passed, not with fear exactly, with awareness. They saw her. They knew what she was capable of. She passed a group of young aliens standing outside a shop. They were talking loudly about humans, about the video, about Earth. "They call it a," one of them said. "Everything there is trying to kill you. The weather, the animals, the plants, even the water can kill you." "And they survived," another one said. "Not just survived, they became the top predator. They killed everything else." "How did they do it?" The first one shrugged. "They learned how to hit things really hard in exactly the right place." Smiled slightly and kept walking. She had heard that he was awake now. He could talk, he could think, but he could not move. His body was a prison that he would never escape. The doctors said he might live another 30 years like that. 30 years in a bed, staring at the ceiling, remembering what had happened to him. She did not feel sorry for him. He had made his choice. He had threatened her. He had demanded that she hit him. He had gotten what he asked for. But she did not feel happy either. She had not wanted to hurt him. She had not wanted to hurt anyone. She had just wanted to do her job and send money home to her mother. Now she was famous. Now she was a symbol. Now the whole galaxy was watching her. She found a window that looked out into space. Stars burned in the darkness. Ships moved in the distance. The universe was very big. Humans were very small. But small did not mean weak. Her communicator buzzed. It was a message from Earth, from her mother. "I saw the video," her mother said. "Your grandfather would be proud." Looked at the stars. She thought about her grandfather, the quiet old man who had taught her where to hit. She thought about all the things he had never told her about his past, the wars he had fought, the things he had done, the skills he had passed down to her. "Thank you, grandfather," she whispered. Then she turned away from the window and walked back into the station. There was work to do. There was always work to do. But now the work was different. Now she was not just a cargo inspector. She was an ambassador, a symbol, a warning. She was a human, and the galaxy would never underestimate her species again. Far away on the lay in his bed. He could not move, he could not fight, he could do nothing except talk. Young warriors came to see him sometimes. They wanted to hear his story. They wanted to learn from his mistake. He always told them the same thing. "They look soft," he would say, his voice slow and slurred. "They look weak, but they come from a world that tried to kill them every day for millions of years, and they won." He would pause then, remembering. "They know exactly where to hurt you. Every species, they study it, they practice it, and they wait." His eyes would grow distant. "They wait until you give them permission." The young warriors would leave then, thinking about what he had said, thinking about the small creatures thinking about what else might be hiding behind those soft faces and gentle voices. And somewhere out there in the endless black between stars, the humans kept working, kept learning, kept waiting. They had waited 40 years to show the galaxy what they were. They could wait 40 more. The universe was patient, and so were they.